You know, people always try to keep the truth hidden. They dress it up, they cover it, they put it in the back of the closet and hope nobody ever opens the door. But here's the thing, truth doesn't stay buried. Truth got a way of knocking on the door, busting through the window, and standing in the middle of the room saying, "Here I am." Now, when we talk about India, let's be real. This ain't the same India people used to think about 20, 30 years ago. Back then, the world liked to paint one picture, you know, the one, poverty, struggle, people surviving on very little. But what they didn't want to talk about is the other side, the power, the growth, the determination. See, the truth about India is coming out now, and everybody got to face it. This country has become one of the strongest voices in the world. Technology, they're at the front. Medicine, they're leading space. They got rockets touching orbits that some nation's still dreaming about. And let's not forget the people, the drive, the hunger, the passion that don't quit. That's what happens when a nation refuses to stay in the shadow. See, people get uncomfortable when the truth don't match the story they've been selling. Some nations loved it when India was quiet, when India wasn't shining too bright. But now, that light is on full blast and you can't cover it up. You can't tell the world India ain't ready when the numbers, the talent, the progress, all of it is screaming the opposite. And let me tell you something, every time the truth comes out, it makes some folks nervous. Because the moment you realize your strength, the moment you stop believing what others said about you, that's the moment everything shifts. India is living that shift right now. So the truth about India, it's out, it's loud, and it ain't going back in the box. The only question now is what you're going to do with that truth. The truth has this way of being unstoppable, no matter how hard people try to hide it or twist it. You can cover it up with lies, you can bury it under stories, you can try to distract the world with noise, but the truth always has a way of slipping through the cracks. It's like water, it will find a way to flow, and when it does, it can wash away everything that was built on falsehood. People can spend years creating illusions, building walls of deception, and putting on a performance for the world to see, but eventually the curtain falls. And what's real comes to light. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't have an expiration date. It might wait in the shadows, it might bide its time, but when it shows up, it's undeniable. Think about it. In every walk of life, there are those who benefit from hiding the truth. They enjoy when people are kept in the dark because ignorance makes it easier to control. They can say whatever they want, and as long as nobody asks questions, their version of the story becomes accepted. But the moment the truth peeks out, the whole structure shakes. It doesn't take a whole flood. Sometimes it's just a single fact, a single revelation, and suddenly everything they worked so hard to hide comes tumbling down. That's the power of truth. It can dismantle what was never real in the first place. The truth makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to face reality. It strips away excuses. It tears down masks. It reveals what was hidden behind the curtain. And the funny thing is, no matter how many people try to deny it, once it's out, they can't unsee it. It gets stuck in the mind. It keeps ringing in the heart. They may try to argue with it. They may try to spin it, but the truth don't need defending. It stands on its own. History itself proves this over and over again. Entire nations have built their image on a certain narrative only to watch the truth come out and completely flip the script. Individuals, too. Some people live their whole lives pretending to be something they're not. And one day, the truth shows up at their doorstep like an unexpected guest. That's why people fear it, because no matter how long it takes, no matter how deep it was buried, truth doesn't stay hidden forever. The world once carried an image of India that was frozen in time. A picture painted by those who wanted to highlight only the struggle while ignoring the strength. They focused on poverty, on chaos, on crowded streets, and people fighting to survive, because that was the story that fit their narrative. They wanted to keep India boxed in, seen only as a nation trying to catch up, a country that could never stand shoulder to shoulder with the so-called global powers. That old picture was repeated in books, in media, in conversations, until it became the only image many outsiders thought was true. But here's the reality. Time has moved on, and India has not just caught up. It has broken through walls that others thought would hold it back forever. This outdated image is what happens when people refuse to update their perspective. They hold on to the past because it's easier than admitting the present has changed. For decades, India was underestimated, seen as a land of problems instead of possibilities. But what they failed to notice was the fire burning into people, the relentless drive that kept pushing forward. That drive has transformed industries, lifted millions into new opportunities, and put India on the global map in ways no one can ignore anymore. The truth is, every nation has its challenges, But when the focus is only on the flaws, the rest of the story gets buried. India's talent, creativity, and determination were always there. But the world was too busy looking at the old chapters to realize a new one was being written. While the picture of the past was kept alive by outsiders, the reality of the present was being created by the hands of the people themselves, who refused to be defined by someone else's version of their story. Now, the outdated picture is breaking apart because the evidence of growth, innovation, and strength is too overwhelming to deny. The world can no longer describe India with the same old words because the actions, the progress, and the achievements speak louder. What was once painted as a land of limitation is now proving itself as a land of limitless possibility. And those who still cling to that old image are being forced to face the truth that their version of India no longer exists. India's rise in technology, medicine, and space is not an accident. It is the product of years of vision, determination, and resilience. When people thought this nation would always remain behind, India quietly kept building, quietly kept investing in education, in innovation, in nurturing some of the sharpest minds in the world. Today, those minds are no longer just shaping India. They are shaping the future of the entire globe. The breakthroughs coming out of Indian labs, the digital revolutions taking place in its cities, and the advancements reaching rural areas all tell the same story. This is a country that has stepped boldly into the future. In technology, India has become one of the most powerful players in the digital age. Its IT sector is not just serving other nations, it is driving innovation at home, creating platforms, startups, and ecosystems that are reshaping the economy. The digital payment systems that transform daily life, the way smartphones are used to bridge gaps, and the rise of tech giants rooted in Indian soil show that the nation is not waiting for permission to innovate. It is leading, it is setting examples, and it is proven that access to talent and creativity can outshine even the wealthiest resources. In medicine, the story is the same. For decades, India has been known as the pharmacy of the world, producing affordable medicine that saves lives across continents. But beyond that, Indian doctors, researchers, and scientists are pushing the boundaries of healthcare with innovation, technology, and dedication that reaches far beyond borders. During global crisis, when others struggled, India stepped up, manufacturing vaccines, distributing medical supplies, and showing that its contribution is not only for its own people, but for humanity as a whole. And in space, India has achieved what many thought impossible. With limited budgets compared to global giants, it has sent missions that captured the imagination of the world. From reaching Mars with cost efficiency to landing on the moon, India has shown that ambition is not about how much you spend, but how far you are willing to dream and how hard you are willing to work. These achievements prove that this nation has not just joined the space race, it has redefined it. And in doing so, it has announced to the world that the era of underestimating India is over. For a long time, there were countries that felt comfortable when India stayed quiet, when its progress wasn't so visible, when its voice didn't echo too loudly in global discussions. That silence served their interests, because as long as India remained in the background, they could dominate the narrative and enjoy the influence without challenge. But that version of India no longer exists because now the strength, the growth, and the determination are visible to the entire world. The very nations that once dismissed India or overlooked it are now being forced to recognize its undeniable presence on every major stage. This makes some uncomfortable because they relied on the old balance of power where India was seen only as a follower, never a leader. But when a nation begins to stand up for itself, when it starts building alliances, pushing back against unfair treatment, and contributing solutions instead of just accepting decisions, that balance gets disrupted. And disruption always causes resistance. Those who were once used to making the rules don't like it when someone new comes to the table with their own ideas, their own strategies, and their own vision for the future. India's growing confidence is not about arrogance. It is about recognition. It is the recognition of what the nation has built through decades of sacrifice and hard work. It is the recognition that its people, its economy, and its innovation carry weight in the world. That recognition has changed the way global conversations take place, because now ignoring India is no longer an option. Whether it is in technology, in defense, in trade, or in cultural influence, the presence is too strong to be overlooked. And this strength is not just in numbers, though the numbers themselves are powerful. It is in the mindset that refuses to be silent anymore, in the refusal to let others define its place in the world. This makes some nations nervous because they were comfortable with India staying in the shadows, quietly contributing but never demanding acknowledgement. Now, as India claims its space, its voice, and its right to be heard, the very same nations that once saw it as small are being forced to deal with the reality of its undeniable strength. When people begin to recognize their own power, everything changes. For years, others may try to tell you who you are, what you can do, and what your limits are supposed to be, but the moment you see your true potential with your own eyes, the entire narrative shifts. That's what happens with nations, and that's what happens with individuals too. The story that others told about you no longer matters once you realize that the pen is in your hand, not theirs. For India, that realization has been building over time, and now it has reached a point where the old voices of doubt can no longer drown out the confidence that comes from within. When you stop believing the labels that were put on you, you stop living under ceilings that never belonged there in the first place. That's when progress accelerates, because your effort is no longer about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. This is the power of self-recognition. Once people recognize their strength, they walk differently, they talk differently, they make decisions differently. The hesitation fades, the fear reduces, and the courage grows stronger. Nations are no different because they are built by people who carry that mindset. India's journey has been full of people who refused to accept the idea that they were meant to remain small. They invested in education, they built industries, they sacrificed comforts for long-term goals. And slowly, step by step, they changed the ground they stood on. That kind of progress doesn't come from luck. It comes from vision. And vision is fueled by the belief that you are capable of more than what others say you are. Now, the world is watching as India moves with a new level of confidence, no longer waiting for approval, no longer asking permission, but stepping into its role with authority. This shift is powerful because once a people believe in their own strength, there is no going back. They cannot be pushed into silence again. They cannot be convinced to shrink themselves to fit into someone else's frame. That recognition is permanent, and it keeps fueling action after action, achievement after achievement, until the new reality becomes undeniable. The truth about India's growth is no longer something whispered in quiet corners or tucked away in reports that only a few people read. It is loud, it is visible, and it is showing up in every conversation that matters. From boardrooms to parliaments, from universities to global summits, the undeniable fact is that this nation has stepped into a new era, and that reality is impossible to push aside. What was once overlooked or dismissed is now commanding attention, because the achievements are too significant, the influence is too widespread, and the momentum is too strong to ignore. When a country's progress reaches the point where the world cannot deny it, that's when the truth becomes louder than any opinion. People can argue, they can debate, they can even criticize, but the results speak for themselves. India's advancements are no longer about potential, they are about proof. Proof in the form of satellites launched into space, proof in the form of global companies led by Indian talent, proof in the form of economic growth that continues to rise even when others are slowing down. This is not theory, this is reality, and reality cannot be hidden once it is in full view. The loudness of this truth is not about volume, it's about presence. It is about the way India now shows up in global decision-making, the way its culture and innovation are shaping industries, the way its population is turning into one of the greatest strengths in the modern world. That kind of presence demands recognition, and recognition brings respect, even from those who may not want to give it. For too long, the narrative of India was written by others, often in ways that downplayed its progress or highlighted only its struggles. But today, the story is being told by the actions of the people themselves, and that story is impossible to rewrite or spin differently. The truth about India's growth is no longer a quiet possibility. It is a reality that echoes in every success, in every milestone, in every headline that announces yet another achievement. And once the truth is out in the open, once it becomes this visible, there is no way for the world to pretend it does not exist.